The only way you can get trust is by being truthful. When you have a product, when you don't have the part, say we're going to order it, get it as fast as we can, but don't give them a bunch of bullshit. Just be up front.
Aroostook County in particular is made up of small businesses, and agriculture is the backbone of that. And at the heart of it is Theriault equipment.
Lionel and his company have been a tremendous part of the success of this industry in northern Maine.
He was like one of the fathers of the community and very much respected.
Everything you see here is a representation of my grandfather and my father.
Lionel set the tone of the culture of the company. Every customer that I work with across the state of Maine that deals with the Theriaults just say they provide service above and beyond anyone else.
A lot of people come here, you know, because they know that he's willing to help anybody and everybody around here.
I think we're pretty well known that we tell the truth. We try to do everything right.
The technician, the crew, the parts inventory, the building they've got. I mean, Lionel has done one heck of a job.
Lionel is just, you know, the highest integrity.
He's a classic individual. I think he represents Aroostook County well.
When Lionel did something, it was never halfway. It was always a full commitment. He went through with everything he said he was going to do.
Lionel was a man of integrity. He was honest to a fault, sometimes abrasively, but you knew where you stood always. He gave you respect.
He didn't have many words, but he did have a lot to say.
I always listened carefully whenever he had anything to say.
If he was talking and he was being serious, you wanted to pay attention. 'Cause you could learn something from him, you know, very knowledgeable, very smart man. And then if he's bitching, you want to pay attention to that too, because you messed up and you don't want to do it again.
Kind of a intimidating person, big cigar hanging out of his mouth.
He could kind of be intimidating, but he's genuinely a good guy.
He was just a really good friend, somebody that you could call if you needed anything. If he could help you out, he would.
He's really got a kind heart.
As a person, he's a good guy. He's my personal friend.
He was probably the most genuine person that you'd ever meet.
Had certain situations I've been in my life, and you know, he was actually probably one of the only people I could talk to on it. Get a straight up answer, get advice, get his opinion. He was good to me, you know. He was good to my family, even my kids. They come here, you know.
He was very loving and caring. He would do anything for anyone.
He always tried to boost everybody up, and I think was extremely intelligent in realizing that when you boost people up and you give them that it comes back.
Years ago, we had a guy in Caribou. He went downstairs and told Lionel that he had stolen over $50,000 from our business and that he was sorry. And in the end, over time, it was paid back. And I said, why are we still going to give this guy a job? And he's like, he needs something. And this is the kind of person that he is.
It didn't matter what the cost was, anything. He would just bend his back for anyone.
One night, we were going to bed and he said, I gotta tell you, I don't know how we're gonna meet payroll this week. I have to do something because I can't let my employees down. This is the way it is with him and family and employees.
He really wanted everybody to feel welcome, engaged, and part of his team. And I think that because of that, people flourish.
Lionel provide us the opportunity to stay here for the number of years that all of us technicians have and kind of push us to succeed, to grow, to be better technicians.
I wouldn't work for anybody else but him, my father, and Jesse Theriault.
I really saw how Lionel treated his employees and the people around him truly like family.
He's been more than just a boss. I mean, you can't call him a boss. He's like an uncle or a grandfather.
He treated each of his employees as if they were a part of his family. And personally myself, when I first started, he looked at me, told me I sucked, but he still pushed me to make me better as to who I am now.
He pushed me when I first started here, and I never realized it until after. He'd ask me, how's this job coming? How's this going? What are we doing with this? And he was always on top of it.
He knew how to really piss you off and positively motivate you at the same time somehow.
He was going to be tough on you at times, but he was tough on you because he wanted you to do better and wanted you to improve yourself as much as the company.
He's a working man. He's a hard-working man. He never stops, never.
He is probably one of the smartest people when it comes to knowing how to serve people. And I think that's why a lot of people respect him.
He had coffee with his friends every morning.
A couple of years ago, we started the coffee group here because where we did it before, didn't want to do it anymore, and so we picked this place.
We've been in several different locations, and he didn't hesitate a minute. He said, "You're coming right out here, right out to my camp." And he and his wife both bend over backwards.
Different folks throughout the community would come in and, you know, either share stories about what's going on or spread rumors or tell bad jokes. But it was a great way to start the day, and his big thing there was he always wanted everybody to laugh.
They were definitely the chatty Cathy's of the town.
We're known somewhat as the Liars Club. And we one time we rated each other, and the biggest liar being number 10, and Lionel went right up to number 10. Of course, this is all joking, because the so-called lies he tells are so way out, you know it's not true. He catches us once in a while.
If he can embarrass you in a fun way, but embarrass you, he will.
He would love to play a joke on you if he could. If he said that it was raining outside, you'd probably want to go check.
I got divorced a few years ago after being together for 20 years, and I went up to Maine for a week to work, and Lionel took me out in his Gator, and I was telling him the financial setback I'd had through that, and he just looked at me and said, "Good, that means I'm going to have you for a long time." So that was the relationship you had with him.
What it was on his mind is what came out of his mouth, and he spoke his mind, and whether you liked it or not, he really didn't give a shit.
He is a one-sentence man, straight to the point, and all you need to hear.
Lionel didn't like his toys, and some of us all have that addiction, and that was his.
Since he was a teenager, he loves fast cars.
He'd buy a $95,000 pickup, and the first thing he'd do is light a cigar in it, and I'd say, "You really gonna smoke in that?" Matter to him. He was smoking a cigar no matter what, no matter who.
He liked to drive fast, he liked to have fun. He didn't care if he got a speeding ticket, he didn't care. It was just, that was what he enjoyed doing, he was gonna do it.
June 8th, 1988 is when Dad purchased the first John Deere store, and this was where the John Deere store originally was here in Presque downtown. When you pull into the store up on the Caribou Road, that was just a big field. So I called it kind of his field of dreams. This was all just a field. And then that came, and then sometime after that, this all came.
When I started cutting everything, my first thing I was looking for was apple trees. So I cut everything around the apple trees, and then when I moved away from it a little bit, I started getting stuck.
You know, I think he loved it so much, days he'd go out and just try to break it just to get us shop guys to go crawl through the mud and get the tracks back on it, or fish him out of the pond or the swamp or the tree he was stuck up in. Or
He gave me something to do other than being at the store. It took my mind off it, and then when I started doing it, I didn't want to stop.
He would do what he had to do in the store, and that was his enjoyment, was to come out in the yard here and make it better. He had a skid steer, and he had about every attachment for it, and he would come out here, and I call it demolition, more or less.
I said, gee, maybe I can build a pond. If I name my relatives, grandkids, kids, or anything who want to fish, I got a stock. It's got quite a lot of fish and big fish. And so that was the first thing, was build it for my grandkids so they could come fishing and swim if they wanted to.
We would always just tell him, like, oh, we have all of our friends coming over to the cabin, and he would always light up, and then when we were here, he always made sure to come by and visit.
It meant enough to him that we paid a pretty significant fine to have it the size it is, because it's 3 times as big as it's supposed to be. But I thought that was part of Lionel's pride, that whole area, that store, that pond, that was all part of the Lionel persona. He was going to make it bigger and better than everybody else did.
All these trails and all these grounds are what he did. You know what I mean? This is what, for 4 or 5, 6 years, this was his retirement. He was out here messing around in his skid steer, making trails and digging that pond. And this was his vision coming to life.
The pond, the camp was his pride and joy.
He filled his dream, more or less to say, with the cabin and the pond.
He poured his heart and soul into this business, but his family was the most important thing in the world to him.
The last 4 years I've lived as his neighbor and just spent a lot of time with him. And then just through my childhood, Grampy was always who we traveled with and did a lot of fun things with.
He helped me in more ways than I could ever explain.
It was his hard work that allowed us to have everything that we did have, but not without a lesson growing up. And that is that you can have nice things, but you are going to work for them in order to get them. They aren't just going to be handed to you. Watching some of the momentous steps he had to take to get to where we are today did not come without blood, sweat, and tears.
A lot of times I'd sit in his office and I would just sit and listen. You know, I didn't say a lot. Lionel also didn't say a lot, but what he said was important.
My work ethic always came from my father, 100%. I was good in school when I was young, and when I started to get into high school days, I started getting in a lot of trouble and liked to party and partied hard, probably harder than I should have been. And then Dad, he said, I know how I'm gonna keep him from getting in trouble. I'm gonna put him to work. He showed me a machine, it was a stump grinder. And I was like, what? And he's like, it's a stump grinder. I think you can do well with it. So I was like, sure, you know. I learned a lot, I worked hard day and night. With my father being as strong as a businessman as he is, the same with him. He's day up to sundown with his business. I feel you don't make a business overnight. It takes years.
Grampy was more of like a second father to me. He was definitely someone that I cared to make proud, or I worried more about disappointing him than I did my own parents growing up.
The one thing that you constantly drove yourself harder for was a recognition of Dad being proud of what you had accomplished. And I can tell you that it wasn't often, but whenever he did say that you did a good job, I'd always try to find a corner somewhere to cry, because to me that was like winning the lottery.
For him to come out and tell me that he was proud of me meant a lot, because he usually was a quiet person.
My mother pointed it out to me at one point in time, and she said, whether it be a pond or this business, you always have to have a vision. And your father's always had a vision to what the future was going to be. And through that vision and hard work, be it achieved.
I didn't realize he had done so much for so many people until you start hearing some of the stories.
Lionel was always an outstanding member of the community.
Very giving person.
He's been involved politically, he's been involved locally with local initiatives and so forth with the local, the university or the schools or the high schools. He loves the kids.
He's got the respect of the growers, gives back to the community.
Being around the dealership all those years, I could see the reason why he was doing that open house. A big part of it is to get that next generation involved, and that just speaks of the type of person he is.
Theriault does a lot for the community.
What a giver he was to young people in our community. A lot of people may not have seen that, but we sure did. From the time when I was in 4-H 40 years ago, could always see Junior bidding on a baby beef steer and supporting young people.
Lionel, I am still In fact, yesterday, finding out his donations.
I always try to take note of, the sponsor board or the list of who's supporting the event or that sort of thing. And I really am struggling to think of a time when I didn't see Theriault equipment or Lionel and Nancy Theriault. Maybe Nancy didn't know about it, but listed as a sponsor or a supporter of literally just everything in town.
Well, I don't know if I've ever seen a man with more will to live than Lionel had. He loved life, he loved what he was doing, he loved his family.
In the early 90s, I had cancer. And three different doctors, said I'd be dead in 30 days.
The likability of you living through that cancer was some 1 or 2%.
Anyway, I said, that's not going to happen. I said, I'm going to have a miracle. This is going to work. I was in the hospital 6 months.
And the times then were a lot more of a struggle as far as finances and such, so it made it a lot more difficult to go through and get treatments for that cancer and still maintain the business.
We would go to Bangor and he'd be in the hospital for a week on chemo. And he would come home sick as a dog. And he would get up and go to work. He would go to work and go to work and go to work. Nothing stopped him.
I had maximum dose of radiation 5 days a week, what they're allowed to give you. I had chemo 24 hours a day while I was there, one kind. Then I had 2 experimental chemos. And after 6 months, it was in June, they released me from, they said we can't do anymore. They'd burned the inside of my throat so bad that there were holes in it and I couldn't eat, swallow, or do anything.
Every Sunday, we'd go to church. Of course, he couldn't shake hands and he couldn't do a lot of stuff because all the treatment he was on. And one day, he just told the pastor, because every week it would be, we got to pray for Lionel to get better. We got to pray for Lionel to get better. And one week he got up and just told everybody, it's time. We're not praying for me to get better anymore. We need to be thankful because I am going to get better. And I'm not going to die. That God has intervened and I am better, and we need to stop praying for me to get better and get past this.
If things looked bad, he had a belief that no matter what happened, between his faith in God and his faith in the employees, we were going to make it. It didn't matter. He had that never-ending faith that it was going to happen.
He has persevered through the tough years and everything.
I'm alive and I'm here. And to me, no matter what, that was a miracle. It was nothing they did.
The doctor came in to talk to me and he said, I'm going to tell you, I have never seen a man like this in my life. He said, Lionel has so much faith and he is such a strong-willed businessman. He said, I'm amazed by him. And this was a very good doctor.
One of his doctors now recently said, for this man to have lived as long as he did with the amount of chemo and radiation that they gave him 20-something years ago is remarkable. And it's a testament to who he is.
He had deep faith, and he'd been through a bout with cancer before, and his faith got him through that. He believed in everybody getting a second chance. So that was Lionel.
This go-around's been a struggle for everyone. What he doesn't know is he's still teaching his family times will be hard, but you never quit. And it's not easy, but he's continued to fight.
Probably the last thing I said to Lionel when I seen him come in here, and I said, about time you get back to work. And then he kind of looked at me and he smirked and didn't say a word. And, Went down towards his office.
That old man, as pale as he was and as thin as he was, walked across this store, walked across that shop, and made it all the way back because he is that strong-willed.
I have the highest respect, and I told him the other day, people will ask you what you aspire to be like, and that's my father.
On behalf of the people of the state of Maine, Nancy, I'd like to present you with this official legislative sentiment. This was read into the official record down in Augusta, and it honors Lionel Theriault Jr. of Presque Isle. His absence will be felt by a lot of people in the community.
He's missed, you know. Every day, I think, you know, the reason this store's so successful is, you know, because of him and his family.
He's missed by a lot of people.
His oldest granddaughter is looking to be married here this weekend, and it's something he's proud of.
It means a lot to him.
And to have his granddaughter there, I think, was a culmination of that's the only place he wanted it to be.
I knew from the day Matt proposed that this is where our wedding was being held. Matt actually proposed here at the cabin, and I just knew it was such a beautiful place, and it would mean so much to Grampy to have it here. And I believe that's what he held out for.
Congratulations.
I want to say he held on for Abby's wedding because he wanted his granddaughter to have a special day with no interruptions and everything to go as they had planned, the way Grampy would have wanted it.
I love you, Grampy.